In the morning of Emma's wedding, the DNA results arrived. I wasn't there. I was in a hotel room in Savannah, Georgia, watching condensation crawl down the outside of the glass. There was nothing outside. A dead parking lot, a shut-down diner, a gas station with one flickering light that never turned off, no matter how long the dark lasted. The kind of place where even shadows feel abandoned. My phone buzzed beside the lamp. Once, twice, again. I didn't answer. I didn't even reach for it. I knew who it was. I could hear her voice already, strained and pretending, trying to lace composure into panic. That voice used to beg for me in the middle of the night. Now it begged for me. Something colder, something more desperate. I had signed the divorce papers 23 days earlier. Shook hands with a man who called himself a mediator but smelled like blood and contracts. He handed me a check, $3 million, and a clause that required only one thing: my silence. No claims. No contact. No name on a birth certificate. Everyone assumed that was the end. But it never ends cleanly. Not when love was a lie. Not when a man becomes a placeholder. Not when biology becomes the razor that slices the mask clean off a marriage. The first crack came the night Emma touched my forehead. It was a Sunday. We had just finished dinner. She said the chicken was dry, but I noticed she'd barely touched her plate. I offered to do the dishes. She didn't say no. I washed. She dried. The domestic rhythm we had perfected over years of avoidance. I turned toward her, and she kissed my forehead. Not my lips, not my cheek, not even a hug. Just a soft, measured touch to the forehead. Like a nurse checking for fever, or a stranger saying goodbye. I should have felt affection. I felt euthanized. That night, her mother called. Not Emma. Her mother. "We need to talk," she said, her voice clean as a scalpel. They lived in the kind of house that makes you speak quieter without knowing why. Every surface polished. Every photo staged. Piano no one played. A rug no one stepped on. They greeted me like I was early for a funeral. Her father gestured toward the couch. Her mother gestured toward the table. And Halpern, the family lawyer, sat like a priest before confession, suit pressed so tight it might have cracked. They didn't offer drinks. They didn't waste time. Her mother slid the envelope across the table like it was covered in something contagious. "Let's be practical," she said. I didn't open it. She nodded toward it again. I peeled it back. One sheet of paper. A number that looked like a wee *P*N. $3 million. It didn't say what for. It didn't have to. "We understand this is difficult," Halpern said, not looking at me. I looked at her father. Nothing. Eyes fixed on the fireplace like it was still lit. Her mother watched me the way people watch stray dogs, cautious, prepared to run. "I only have one question," I said. They all looked up. "What about the truth?" A silence dropped into the room like a stone in water. Halpern blinked. Her father cleared his throat. Her mother smiled, and I felt it like poison. "This is best for everyone." I should have torn the check in half, told them to go to hell, demanded to know why my name was being erased from a life I had been willing to build, brick by quiet brick. But I didn't. I signed. I walked out with a check and a hollow chest. And I stayed silent. I used to believe silence was strength. That biting down meant endurance. That holding back meant love. That by swallowing my doubts, I was protecting something greater than myself. But silence is not strength. It's permission. And I had given them all they needed to rewrite the story, to make me the footnote. The man who couldn't make it work. The man who chose to leave. The man who wasn't ready for fatherhood. They crafted their version of me before the ink dried. But I still had mine. The night I left, I didn't pack much. Just the basics: shirts, jeans, my tools, a box of receipts I hadn't looked at in years. I thought I was walking away from a house. But what I was really leaving behind was the illusion of family, of fidelity, of belonging. The week after the divorce, I started drinking my coffee black again. Not out of preference, out of honesty, because sweetness had always been a lie in that house. Sugar in the kitchen, poison in the hallways. I stayed in a rental 2 towns over. A place with crooked blinds and noisy pipes. I could hear the upstairs neighbor sobbing most nights. It didn't bother me. It was real. That was more than I'd had in years. Sometimes I'd stare at my hands and wonder how long they'd been doing things. Paying, fixing, building without being seen. Invisible labor. The kind you only notice when it stops. Emma never worked. Her parents made sure she didn't have to. When we married, I thought I was helping her stand on her own. She let me believe that. I paid the mortgage. I covered her car. I rebuilt the guest room with my bare hands when she said she wanted a nursery. Just in case. She said we were trying. But we weren't. Because I couldn't. I'd seen the file once. Years ago. A folded consultation note in a plastic sleeve. Forgotten in our old apartment's filing cabinet. It used words like low motility and unlikely. I kept it to myself. Thought I'd get tested again. Thought I'd prove the numbers wrong. Then, a year later, she told me she was pregnant. Twins. She cried. I held her. But something inside me began to sink. I asked once, just once, if she was sure. About the dates. The timelines. She looked at me like I had slapped her. I never brought it up again. But it lived in me. Grew alongside them. 2 little pulses on an ultrasound screen. And me, the ghost standing beside it. When the results arrived, I didn't open them right away. I left the envelope on the dresser for hours. My name printed on the front like a dare. I waited until the sun set. Then I opened it. The words were clinical. Cold. No room for doubt. Probability of paternity, 0. 0%. Perfect 0. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just stared. Not because it hurt. Because I already knew. Because I had known the night she kissed my forehead. Because I had known when her mother called, not her. Because I had known when they offered money instead of answers. But now I had it on paper. Proof that the man I had tried to be, husband, father, protector, had been nothing more than a convenient fiction. A placeholder until the real story could begin. And now it had. Without me. After the results came, I didn't sleep for 3 days. Not because of heartbreak. I had passed that marker long ago. Not because of rage. Though God knows it coiled inside me like a tightening spring. I didn't sleep because I couldn't bear to close my eyes and see their faces. Not the twins. Not hers. Not mine. I drove aimlessly through Georgia, cutting across counties like I was fleeing something criminal. I stopped at a gas station with no roof lights and watched the cashier count scratch-off tickets in silence. I ate 3 meals at a 24-hour diner where the waitress called me honey and never asked why my eyes looked like bruises. I didn't speak. What would I even say? I was a father to children who weren't mine. A husband to a woman who'd used me like scaffolding, something to build on, not with. And I was a fool who had spent years pouring concrete into a foundation that was never meant to hold my weight. I kept driving. Eventually, I ended up back at the house. Not inside, never again. I parked across the street just after midnight and watched the lights. One window was still glowing. The nursery. They'd never changed the bulb I installed. Still flickered if you flipped the switch too fast. I saw it blink, then hold steady. She was in there. Maybe watching them sleep. Maybe texting Halpern. That thought made my knuckles tighten around the wheel. I went back to the apartment around 3 a.m. I hadn't unpacked much. The boxes sat like silent witnesses to a life I hadn't yet accepted. I opened the old filing cabinet. Just needed something to do with my hands. That's when I saw it. My file. Tucked behind tax returns and expired insurance forms. A white folder with my name on the tab, smudged from age and handling. Inside, photocopies of medical reports. Notes from a fertility specialist. The same diagnosis I remembered. The same hopeless numbers. Extremely low probability of biological conception. Recommend assisted reproductive evaluation if parenthood is desired. I read it 3 times. Felt like being kicked in the ribs by someone you trusted. And then something new. A recent lab request. Dated 6 weeks before the divorce. Emma's name. Halpern's number in the contact info. I sat there for hours, staring at it, until the sun cracked the edge of the blinds and set the paper aglow. And that's when it hit me. They knew before I did. They had planned this, tested behind my back, arranged the story, scheduled my exit. The check wasn't an offer. It was a payoff. The truth wasn't an accident. It was a controlled demolition. I didn't confront her. I wanted to drive to that house, slam my fists against the glass, demand the kind of apology that never comes. But I'd already seen what silence had done to me, so I turned it on them. I logged into the bank account that still held joint authority. My name hadn't been removed yet. She probably assumed I wouldn't notice. Or maybe she thought I'd still play the role. The provider, the quiet mule. The mortgage was due in 4 days. I canceled the automatic payment. Then the home insurance. Then the electric bill. Then I went deeper, disconnected all the cards tied to my name. Gas, groceries, diapers, gone. One click at a time. Not out of vengeance. Out of principle. If they were building a life without me, they could pay for it without me too. The next morning, I got an email from the bank. Urgent. Payment rejected. Mortgage account. I smiled. Then I heard it, a message alert. Not from Emma. From one of her daughters. Not the twins. The older ones. From her first marriage. They didn't know I still had access to the shared Apple account. Didn't know their messages synced to the iPad buried under clothes in the apartment closet. I opened it. Just curiosity, I told myself. It was a group chat. I'll never forget the words. He'll leave soon. He just pays the mortgage. Yeah. Mom said he's not really involved anymore. Honestly glad. He's so awkward. They didn't know I was reading. They didn't know I was still breathing. But they had already buried me. That same night, Emma texted, "Why did the bank send a notice? Not how are you? Not can we talk? Just, why did the bank send a notice?" I stared at that sentence for a long time. Then I typed a reply and deleted it. Then I typed another. Finally, I sent just this. "You'll need to contact the new provider. I'm not covering it anymore." She didn't respond. The next morning, her father called. I let it ring. Then helpern. Then a blocked number. I let them all ring. I wanted them to sweat. I wanted them to feel the silence. 2 nights later, I got a strange email. It was sent to an old shared inbox we'd used when planning the wedding. A thread from a clinic. I nearly deleted it, until I saw the subject line. Confirmation. Prenatal DNA test. Monday, 10 a.m. My heart thudded. I clicked. Emma's name. And helpern's. Both listed as parties to be notified. That was it. That was the missing piece. The test wasn't just insurance. It was confirmation. Legal backing to lock me out, elevate him in, and rewrite the next 20 years like I'd never existed. I called Marcy, an old friend, paralegal, one of the few people left who still spoke to me like I was human. She answered on the second ring. "Jesus, Michael, you okay?" I told her everything. She paused, then said one sentence. "Don't contact anyone. Save everything." So I did. **TS. Bank statements. Copies of the file. Everything backed up. Encrypted. Copied to a USB drive I stored in a safe deposit box under a fake name. I wanted to be ready. Not for revenge. For proof. For when they tried to rewrite the story again. A day later, I got a message from a blocked number. Just 2 lines. "You should know they're rushing the DNA results before the wedding. The father isn't who you think." I waited. Another message came. "Meet me tomorrow. 6 p.m. Ridley's Diner. Back booth." Against every instinct, I went. I wore a hat. Sat facing the door. The man who slid into the booth across from me didn't introduce himself. He just handed me a phone. On the screen, an audio recording. I pressed play. A woman's voice, tight with fear. "He's not the father. You know that." Then Halpern's voice, low and furious. "Don't be naive. I am. And you're not going to destroy a family over biology." The man across from me nodded once. "You didn't get this from me." Then he left. I didn't touch my coffee. Just sat there while the waitress refilled it twice. That night I didn't sleep. The next morning I made a decision. I requested a final meeting. Not with Emma. With them. Her parents. Halpern. Emma if she dared. We met at the same house. Same leather couch. Same fireplace. But this time I didn't sit. I stood. And I laid everything on the table. The transfer agreement. The file with my infertility diagnosis. The prenatal test appointment. The group chat from her daughters. The audio recording. They didn't speak. Not right away. Then Halpern tried to lean forward. Like we were old friends discussing golf. "You're not thinking clearly," he said. I cut him off. "You paid me," I said, voice calm. "You rushed me. You tried to erase me." Emma looked pale. Her mother looked annoyed. Her father wouldn't meet my eyes. "Then what do you want?" Halpern asked. 3 words. Retract every lie. I handed over a document. A formal statement. Denying every accusation they'd let hang in the air. No NDAs. No gag orders. Public. Second demand. Return what's mine. A list of financial transactions. My car. My tools. Every item purchased with my money. Third. Handle the consequences. For those children. Honestly. Transparently. No more secrets. No more blame. They nodded. Not in agreement. In surrender. I turned to leave. Emma whispered my name. Soft. Almost like the first time she said it. I didn't turn around. Not anymore. The day after that final meeting, I emptied my old workshop. Not much left. A few tools I hadn't touched in months. Some scraps of wood I once planned to carve into a cradle. That was back when I believed in the future, when I thought the right hands could build anything. But some things don't crack. They rot from the inside. And by the time you smell it, it's already too late. I found an old baby monitor in the bottom drawer. Still had the sticker on it. Emma had bought it on a whim. Said it would be cute to keep it plugged in, even before the baby came. I had nodded, smiled, set it up beside the empty crib. Now I carried it to the dumpster. Let it fall. It didn't break. Just landed with a dull plastic thud. Nothing breaks when you expect it to. I went back to Savannah. Rented a place with salt on the windows and mildew in the grout. The kind of apartment no one asks questions in. The kind of place where people come to disappear or be forgotten. The first few days were quiet. I walked by the marshlands at dusk. Bought groceries from a store where no one knew my name. Ate my meals in silence. It was peaceful, but peace is a strange thing when it comes too late. It doesn't soothe. It just exposes how long you lived without it. And then the calls started. First, I ignored them. Then I listened. Voicemails, mostly. Emma's voice, quiet and fast. A plea wearing a mask of civility. "Michael, I don't know what you think you're doing. This isn't how we handle things. The lawyers said your demands were unexpected, but we're willing to discuss. Just call me." Then her father. "Michael, we've been advised not to escalate, but this behavior could be considered retaliatory. Think about your reputation." Then Halpern. Just one sentence. "You're making a mistake you won't come back from." I saved every message. Labeled each one. The names weren't theirs. Emma became glass. Her father, debt. Halpern, fire. It helped. Naming things by what they caused, not what they were. A week passed. Then 2. Then came the envelope. No return address. Hand-delivered to the apartment office. Inside a letter. From Emma. For pages? Handwritten. Black ink on thick paper. No apology. Not really. Just explanation dressed in empathy. "We all make choices in moments of fear. What happened between us is layered and complex. You were always kind, and I never stopped admiring that. But one line caught me. They need stability now more than ever. You disappearing has only hurt them further. They need stability." As if I had been the earthquake. As if they hadn't detonated the foundation and handed me the bill. I set the letter down. Lit a match. Watched it curl into ash in the kitchen sink. No ceremony. Just a burn. That night, I got a text from an unknown number. "You still paying for the twins' health insurance?" No name. but I recognized the area code. A nurse, maybe. Someone from the clinic. Someone who knew what was about to hit them. I checked the policy. Still active. Still billed to my name. Still assuming my role. I canceled it. No message. No warning. A clean slice. The next day, a new voicemail. Emma again. This time sharper. You can't just pull out of responsibilities like that. There are systems. There are consequences. You're making things worse than they need to be. I played it 3 times. Then deleted it. Another week. Another letter. This one from a school. Tuition overdue. Addressed to me. I hadn't enrolled them. Hadn't signed anything. But my name was on the form. Somehow they'd filed me under father again. I called the school. Asked for records. The secretary fumbled. Said she'd need clearance. Said the mother had listed me as the guarantor. Said, we've had some confusion with family roles lately. I asked for documentation. They emailed me the form. I opened the PDF. There it was. My name. My signature. Except I never signed it. They forged it. Not even SK** fully. An old scan from a lease agreement pasted into a digital line. I didn't call them. I called my lawyer. Filed the documents. Let the school know the signature was invalid. Contacted the bank. Froze every account tied to their address. Then I sat down. Opened a fresh file on my computer. Labeled it, The Lie That Lived. And I began writing everything. Dates. Names. Numbers. Receipts. Audio files. **TS. A map of every decision they made on my behalf after I was erased. Not for court. Not for revenge. For history. For the record. For the next man. If there ever is one. So he knows what this family builds. What it consumes. What it costs. 3 weeks passed. One morning, I walked down to the mailbox. Inside a card. No return address again. Different handwriting. Inside a single sentence. I didn't know. I'm sorry. No name. No clue. Could have been one of the older daughters. Could have been a lie. I didn't respond. You don't reply to ghosts. You let them drift. Eventually, the money came through. The final transfer. Part of the agreement I hadn't canceled. I stared at the amount. Same as before. 3 million. A number shaped like a noose if you stare long enough. I thought about donating it. Thought about burning it. Instead, I opened a new account. Different bank. Different state. Under a name I hadn't used in years. My mother's maiden name. Then I let it sit. Like a wee **p***n I didn't want to use, but couldn't afford to lose. Emma called again. This time I picked up. Michael, she said. Her voice was breathless. Like she'd run across a field of regret to reach me. I didn't say anything. Just listened. I know you don't want to hear from me, but they ask about you. The twins. They don't understand why you're gone. They miss you. I could hear her voice break. She let the silence stretch. They still call you Daddy. A long pause. She was waiting for me to cry. Or speak. Or break. I didn't. They're just kids, she whispered. They didn't ask for any of this. And I felt something shift. Not inside me. Around me. Like the air had lost its weight. I finally spoke. Just one question. Do they know who their father is? She didn't answer. The line went quiet. Then she hung up. I stood by the window that night, looking at the parking lot below. A cat wandered between cars. A child cried in a neighboring unit. Life, unbothered. Unaware of the wreckage upstairs. I made tea. Sat on the couch. Watched the steam curl. And I realized something. It wasn't about love. It never had been. It was about position. About role. About utility. I had been the scaffold. The interim. The steady hand when the real one trembled. And when they didn't need that anymore, they cashed me out. But now the scaffold was gone. And the building was starting to tilt. Because biology doesn't build stability. It builds identity. Responsibility builds home. And I had walked out of their home. Because it had never really been mine. And the cracks they tried to patch with silence? They were widening. Fast. I moved inland. Not far. Just enough to make sure no one could knock on my door without a real reason. A small house tucked into a row of others just like it. Identical mailboxes. Lawns that never got too wild. Neighbors who waved but never pried. It was the kind of place where people had given up on drama and learned to love routine. I painted the porch myself. Something about that felt necessary. Like claiming a space that no one had touched but me. The paint bled into the wood too fast. Old timber. Thirsty. I watched it soak and settle. No resistance. No second guessing. I wanted to believe I was settling too. But you don't settle when you leave a house like mine. You exile. Months passed. I changed the locks on my old accounts. Closed the joint ones. Cut every subscription, every utility, every thread that tied me to a place I'd once called home. Not out of pettiness. Out of survival. Because if you leave anything open, they'll crawl back through it. They always do. One night in early spring, I got a letter from the twins' pediatrician. Not addressed to me. Someone had forwarded it through the system. A copy of an unpaid bill. $1,800. Due in full. My name listed as the policyholder. I canceled that policy 5 months ago. I called the office. Explained. The woman on the phone was sympathetic. Said the mother had insisted the policy was still active. Said there'd been confusion. I told her there was no confusion. Only fraud. She said she understood. I asked for a formal letter confirming I was no longer responsible. She sent it. I filed it in the drawer labeled closed. The next knock came 2 weeks later. Not literal, a metaphorical one. A message request on social media. From an account I didn't recognize. A teenager's photo. Blonde hair. A hoodie I remembered buying on a cold autumn sale weekend. It was the older daughter. Not Emma's. Not mine. The one from her first marriage. The one who once sat on my shoulders at the county fair, clutching a pink balloon, before she learned what bitterness tasted like. I'm sorry for what I said. We were just stupid. We thought. The message trailed off. Then another. It wasn't your fault. Then, if you ever want to talk, I'm here. I didn't answer. Not because I was angry. Because I didn't know what to say. When a child burns down the bridge and grows up in the ashes, how do you meet them? As the man who built the bridge? Or the one who walked away? Later that month, a friend sent me a link. A local paper. Small, quiet article. Buried under ads and opinion columns. The headline, Prominent Family Sued Over Falsified Legal Documents. I clicked. There it was. Halpern. Not for my case. Not yet. But someone else had caught him cutting corners. A forged consent form. A falsified asset disclosure. He was under review. His license in question. No mention of Emma. No mention of the twins. But I could read between the lines. When you lie long enough, you start to forget which version of the truth you last told. And sooner or later, someone brings a match. I kept the house cold. Windows cracked even in March. Something about the air made it easier to breathe. I didn't decorate. No photos. No keepsakes. Just furniture and books. Clean lines. Things that made sense. One evening, I stood in the garage looking at a half-assembled crib I had dragged from storage. I didn't know why I brought it with me. Part of me thought I might finish it. Sand it down. Donate it. I never did. I left it there. A monument to what I thought I was building. One Sunday I got a call. Blocked number. I let it ring. Let it go to voicemail. A minute later, the alert pinged. I listened. Emma. Her voice, quieter than I remembered. Not afraid. Not broken. Just small. They ask about you still. I tell them you're traveling. That you needed time. But they're getting older. They're starting to ask why. I don't know what to say anymore. A pause. Then, you were the best part of their lives. And I broke it. Silence. Then the click of the call ending. I didn't cry. I didn't replay it. I deleted it. Because forgiveness isn't something you grant to people who confuse your love with leverage. And guilt, no matter how late it comes, can't pay for what it stole. Summer came. I bought a second-hand canoe. Spent mornings on the lake. Just me, the paddle, and the sound of birds calling names no one had given them. It was the kind of quiet I used to think I had to earn. Now I knew it could simply be chosen. One afternoon, I passed a father teaching his son to fish. The boy laughed. The line tangled. The man cursed softly, then laughed too. It didn't hurt to see it. That surprised me. I just nodded as I passed. He nodded back. Nothing else exchanged. Just two men. Two lives. No judgment. No performance. Just presence. I began writing again. Nothing public. No memoir. No tell-all. Just pages. Letters I'd never send. Thoughts I couldn't say aloud. A record not for vengeance, but for clarity. For memory. So I wouldn't soften it in my mind. So I wouldn't rewrite it in favor of love. Because we do that, don't we? We remember love in ways that protect it. Even when it doesn't deserve protection. But I kept it raw. The truth, like a broken bone never set right. Ugly. Necessary. Then, one evening, the past tried to come home. A knock on the door. Real this time. Soft. Rhythmic. I opened it. Emma. Older. Tired. Beautiful still, but in that way where the beauty costs something now. She held a small box. I didn't invite her in. She didn't ask. I just wanted to give you this, she said. Inside photos. Of the twins. First birthday. Second. Third. I flipped through them slowly. One was drawing with sidewalk chalk. The other was asleep on the couch, cradling a stuffed animal I vaguely remembered buying from a gas station. They ask for you, she said. I looked up. They shouldn't, I replied. Her eyes filled, but she didn't cry. She nodded. I know. A pause. I was wrong. Another pause. I lied. I closed the box, held it to my chest for a second, then handed it back. You needed a father. You hired a man. Her mouth opened. No words, just air. I stepped back. Goodbye, Emma. And I closed the door. This time she didn't knock again. The seasons turned. Leaves fell. The lake froze. The canoe gathered dust. I didn't mind. Some things don't need motion to have meaning. Some things are better still. I live simply now. I wake up when I want. Eat what I need. Speak when it matters. And sometimes, when the wind is right, I swear I can hear a child's laugh echo across the water. It doesn't belong to me, but I honor it anyway, because for a brief, shining moment, I believed I had earned that sound. And maybe that's enough. Maybe it's not. But here's the question I leave you with, the one I've asked myself every night since the lie broke open. Was I wrong? Was I wrong to take the money? To vanish? To cut the cord so cleanly it left scars? Or was that the only way to survive a life that was never really mine? Would you have stayed? Would you have fought? Would you have begged for recognition from a woman who only knew how to pay? Or would you have walked away the first time you saw the truth? Not in her eyes, but in the way she looked through you? Tell me. I'm still listening. And if stories like this matter to you, raw, unforgiving, honest, then stick around. We're not done walking yet.